David Lammy. Fear not, fear not. David Lammy's got it covered. He's in charge. He is going to smash the gangs. It's all going to be fine. The Celebrity Mastermind contestant and Foreign Secretary has sorted it out. All will be well. This is what he had to say in a speech earlier today.
Two domestic priorities of the British people that cannot be solved without work abroad: tackling irregular migration and boosting economic growth. On irregular migration, the FCDO is critical to trying to solve this issue. A realistic strategy involves transactional, hard-headed diplomacy, so together that we can strengthen borders, smash the gangs, and get those with no right to be here returned to their countries.
David Lammy there, the Foreign Secretary. He says that this world-first policy will see financial sanctions used in organised crime and terrorist imposed on boat kingpins in a bid to cripple the networks. Is it going to work? Ralph Schoellhammer is a political theorist. He's also a professor in Budapest. Ralph, my favourite guest, back on Talk. Great to have you here. I mean, how do you target people's financial assets when they're criminals? I mean, surely it's their job to keep it secret, their assets. I mean, is this possible? Do you think this plan can work?
No, generally, I think the means are definitely there, right? We had similar discussions in Austria about anonymous bank accounts and what can be done and how the state can get access. But I think the big issue is always, and that's true in the United Kingdom as it is in continental Europe, is that, of course, very often we have created systems, high tax burdens, a high regulatory state, where a significant number of people, depending on where they are and what options they have, that they probably will opt for a life of crime or a life in the shadows, as they say, because you simply can keep more of the money that you make. And I think this is not just true in the UK. I think this is not just true in continental Europe. This is a problem all over the West. If you tax honest labor up to the hilt, then more and more people will look for dishonest labor. And I think this is a little bit what we're currently seeing.
We've seen as well that foreign criminals here in the UK are going on crime sprees after avoiding deportation. They're responsible for 40,000 crimes in just 4 years. There are lots of people who will say, why can't we deport these people? What is the law around this? How does this actually work? And the fact that even when we try to deport some of these people, they laugh in our face and just come back even if we do send them home.
Yeah, I mean, this is another thing, and that's something I would argue that started a little bit in the 1960s. This, what I would call a therapeutic approach to public policy. So if crime happens, it's no longer that you just have to crack down on crime and prevent it from happening. It is more that you have to understand the criminal, right? What is the motivation behind the individual that does something? And don't get me wrong, that's definitely interesting, and I'm sure that social scientists should look into this. But overall, the main obligation of the state, of the government, of the police is not to do some kind of sociological study or deep psychological therapeutic work. They have to take care of security and safety within communities and in the public spaces. To be quite frank, I'm sure there are reasons why somebody is, robbing a bank, stealing from a grocery store, you name it, right? I'm sure there are some reasons why this is going on, but at the end of the day, what most people want is for this not to happen. Period. That is the problem. That is the issue that needs to be resolved, and not some therapeutic approaches. Why do people do things that they do?
It's interesting just with the human traffickers particularly. This new regime of sanctions is going to allow ministers to freeze the bank accounts, property and other assets, including those responsible for sending tens of thousands of small boat migrants across the channel. They're also going to be publicly named for the first time. If you were a trafficker, would you be afraid of these sanctions, or would you just say, well, whatever, do your worst?
Yeah, I think exactly what you just said. I think the reaction will be, to quote you, is going to be whatever, because we heard all of this in the past. We heard it in every European country that, we're going to crack down, we will have more punishment, it will be harder. There is this framework that has been established, and this is something we probably at some point have to have a longer conversation about, right? Of human traffickers, of NGOs, of wannabe do-gooders, of governments that turn blind eyes. So there is this kind of entire industry, if you want. Some of it legal, some of it illegal, some of it in the gray area. that has been built up around human trafficking, human smuggling, and migration, both of the legal and the illegal kind. We just recently had this debate in the United States, right, with Donald Trump and Elon Musk about these H-1B visas, which is a similar story where there is a lot of fraud and a lot of abuse. But the ultimate point, I think, that always stands is the United Kingdom has been a country that more or less single-handedly ended global slave trade. A country that once was able to do that should also be able to get a grip on illegal migration of human trafficking of whatever kind. But it takes political will. And it takes, I think, in many ways, hard, and I use this word advisedly, punitive measures. Again, we do this therapeutic thing once again. Why do traffickers do what they do? Why do people leave the countries? Why is this? I don't care. Right? People want the consequences of these policies to stop. And I think this is, once again, this must be the guiding star of whatever is going to happen.
Is it not an idea to understand those motivations to some degree? At least you can then diagnose the problem, although it could very easily be argued we know what the problem is. There are too many people arriving on our shores here in the United Kingdom. You know the score right across Europe, because that's your area, Ralph. I know you study this both from a historical and political science perspective. And actually, the movement of people is going to be here to stay. So how do we deal with it?
Oh, no, I think you're absolutely right. And of course, we should look at this in the background as well. I don't think that one thing excludes the other. But I don't want to shift the topic, but this is something, and by the way, Peter,
feel free to shift the topic, Ralph.
Well,
I'm always interested in what you have to say, no matter what it's about.
Because I have to compliment both you and talkTV, because I think in recent weeks on many issues, you really took the right side, both morally and factually, on many issues. But if you look, for example, what has been currently going on with the entire debate now about grooming gangs, rape gangs in the United Kingdom, I'm sure there will be many interesting sociological studies. Why did things happen in the way that they happen, right? Why did the police turn a blind eye? Why is it particularly, why are the perpetrators particularly men from a certain cultural background? I'm sure there are many reasons and many interesting explanations, but at this point, these things have to stop. And the same, I think, for me is true with illegal immigration or with mass migration as it currently happens. There are many interesting factors to be looked at, and I'm looking forward to all the publication and studies that will be produced.
Are we blinded by that, Ralph? Are we blinded by that and we say, well, let's have a look at this motivation, rather than simply saying, for example, with those rape gangs, those paedophile gangs, this is wrong. With immigration, this shouldn't happen, this isn't good, people are dying, and it's a tremendous pressure on the system, and it's taking rights away and taking standard of living, lowering the standard of living of people who've paid into the system and lived here all their lives. Is it, I mean, why is it, do you think, maybe this is a postmodern argument, I don't know, but why is it that not just politicians, but lots of people can actually not just call a spade and say, look, this is wrong and we need to fix it?
No, I think you're 100% right. This is part of the postmodern condition. The assumption is, and this has permeated so many parts of the West, is that there is a technical solution, if you want, to every problem, and that everything that goes wrong is because the system has failed someone, right? Whether it's then discrimination or economic hardship or you name it, it's always something that the system has done to an individual. We no longer believe, and I think that is a mistake, that there are good people out there, many of them, by the way. I think there are many, many good people out there, but there are also evil people out there. There are people who take pleasure in hurting others. There are people who have, a sociopathic or psychopathic streak, and not everybody can be, therapeutically
rehabilitated,
supervised to become, precisely. So this is something that is going on. As I said, what the reasons are for this, were they mistreated as children or whatever it then is, was there lead in the water supply, whatever it then at the end of the day is, it's almost irrelevant. When it comes to solving the problem at hand. But I think this is this idea that if somebody does something evil, it can only be the consequence of this individual having been failed by the system.
There are just bad people.
Yeah, there are. I mean, this is and you get, and this is, by the way, another thing. And the thing you do against having bad people is, to quote William Wilberforce, right, to play such a significant role in the abolishment of the slave trade, is also kind of to reform morality. Like, we need, I know this sounds so old-fashioned, but I think we have to become more moral again. There are so many things out there that we started to accept, right? It's not just, it's the grooming gangs have been one story, but another one is also when you have young girls who want to break world records of sleeping with 1,000 men in a day. Like, those are different symptoms of a decaying culture, of a declining civilization. And we have to push back against this.
Ralph, thank you very much indeed. You speak so much sense as always. Ralph Schoellhammer, their political theorist. He is head of the Centre for Applied History at the Matthias Corvinus Collegium in Budapest.